are you all doing tonight? My name is Bigbobbedboi and welcome to a hunter's guide to the rotation. I touched on this a bit in the Hunter Essentials guide, but a lot of people asked me to go deeper, expand and extrapolate, or they were just confused because I did a bad job explaining it the first time. Now, before we get into it, I should say this is ever evolving. Hunter rotation in TBC Classic has been thrown into a weird place compared to original TBC because of how global cooldowns are checked. Anything you've seen about rotations in original TBC does not apply in TBC Classic. There's also just a shitload of math that goes into this. Even if a rotation is mathematically the best, that doesn't mean it's possible to pull off in a raid environment or even worth it because of some other reasons. Some of this is also just the way I like to think about it. It makes sense to me. Alright, with that said, hands wet, ass up, let's dive in. The most fundamental part of hunter rotation to understand is the interactions of steady shot, auto shot, and haste. Auto shot and steady shot are going to be where most of our damage comes from, so we want to be as efficient as possible with those. Makes sense, right? Well, just like in Classic, our auto shots can't go off while we are doing something else. Like if we're casting a steady shot, we can't auto shot at the same time. Our auto shots also have a hidden cast time. So we need to be standing still, doing nothing for that cast time for the auto shot to actually go off. This means that it's generally best to start casting the steady shot immediately after an auto shot goes off. That way you don't interfere with the next auto shot. Okay, this is shit we've already done in Classic and it sounds easy, because it is easy. Things start to get complicated because of haste. Auto shot is affected by haste. Steady shot is also affected by haste. So you would think this means it's still easy. They both get haste. Just keep doing what you were doing, but faster. The problem arises because the global cooldown. The global cooldown is not affected by haste.
That ability isn't ready yet. I can't do that yet.
For BM, you probably have around a 2.2 attack speed without any haste effects. You can bring that down to almost nothing, and steady will follow suit, but the global cooldown will always stay at 1.5 seconds. So even if you could get your auto down to 0.5 seconds and steady cast time down to 0.5 seconds, that'd be great for auto shot damage, but the steady is hard capped because of that global cooldown. Shit. And that's where these graphs come in. They simulate which rotations will be best at any given speed. But that's the high level stuff. Now that we know how important all this is, let's start on the basic rotations and build up to incorporating all that other shit. First, we'll look at the 1-to-1 rotation. The 1-to-1 rotation is the easiest and most important to know. It's also the most mana efficient. 1-to-1 literally means for every auto shot there is one steady shot. Seriously, it's easy as balls. As soon as the auto shot rings out, start the steady shot and repeat. We will use this one a lot, and there is one variation of this rotation to mention. That is replacing steady shot with multi-shot when it's up. Obviously great for cleaves, but even on single target, this is a DPS gain, but more mana intensive. There is no real reason to use arcane shot in this rotation unless you're moving, the target has some kind of arcane weakness debuff, or it's an incredibly high armor target and we don't have armor debuffs on them. I like to think of 1-to-1 as sort of the base rotation and then I build around it. So let's do that. Let's say we go slower. As BM with Sun Fury, my base speed is 2.1. At this speed, I like to roll with what is known as the French rotation. Alright, I already made a bunch of French jokes in another Hunter video, so I don't know. Here's a picture of Marquis de Lafayette. This is a variation on an old original TBC rotation called 115. You might also see this called 5511, which sounds really goddamn complicated, but it just means 5 autos, 5 steadies, 1 multi-shot, and 1 arcane shot. And here is what this looks like.
It's still recharging. That ability isn't ready yet. I can't cast that yet. I can't do that yet. That's still
And the order for it goes like this: auto, steady, multi, auto, steady, arcane, auto, steady, and then we repeat. Okay, when you look at it like that, it kind of seems complicated, but it really isn't. In fact, it's really easy to get a feel for it. If you are running a 3.0 or higher speed weapon as BM, this will feel smooth as shit, and it's amazing. If you're on 2.9 like Sun Fury or 2.8, well, actually will clip a little bit. Clipping, if you don't know for some reason, just means you are going to delay an auto shot. However, we are delaying it by so goddamn little here, and you are putting in 2 extra shots that it's well worth doing. Just keep in mind this is a very mana intensive rotation. French works out well for effective range speed around 2.3 to 2.1, but if you start to get faster than 2.1, I think it becomes not worth it. Okay, so how does that happen? Okay, there's 2 ways for this to happen. One is you have a weapon that isn't pre-raid BIS or phase 1 BIS, like WSSR or Hunter Jesus Help You, Steelhawk. The other most common way is some kind of haste buff. Improved aspect of the Hawk, DST, hell yeah! Bloodlust, Abacus, Haste Pot, you know, all that kind of shit. Now, because Hunter Jesus loves us all, this is also less complicated than it seems, as most haste buffs will put us into an excellent speed for the 1-to-1 rotation. This graph might be a little hard to read, but the most important parts are this blue line. That represents the 1-to-1 rotation. The purple line represents French rotation. X is attack speed and Y is damage. All the way on the left, French is higher. And then at just below 1.8, 1-to-1 pulls ahead. So what if you end up at 1.8 or 1.9? Well, I would probably still stick with 1-to-1 rotation at those speeds, unless you know that mana is no worry and you will never have to drop into Viper or pop a mana pot. But French rotation will also just feel like absolute ass to do at that speed because of how much you're clipping anyway. But it doesn't matter that much at those speeds. The difference between the 2 rotations at those speeds is so minuscule while costing so much more mana. I don't see it worth it for French. Alright, let's make this make sense. Looking at my BM Hunter and taking my Sun Fury as an example here, I'm at 2.1 speed. If improved Hawk procs, I go to 1.83. That's on the slow end for 1.1. But we still want to drop the French and go to 1.1. What about when DST procs? I go down to 1.74. Damn, that's faster than improved Hawk. 1.7 is firmly in 1-to-1 territory. Time to rip shit up. What about Imp Hawk and DST proc together? Oh shit! Okay, that was actually really annoying trying to get them both to proc at the same time, but that drops me to a 1.52 attack speed. That is a literal chef's kiss to 1-to-1. That's almost as perfect as it gets. Let's look at that graph again. See how 1-to-1 flatlines? That's exactly what we talked about earlier. The global cooldown hard capping 1-to-1. But we can definitely shoot faster than 1.5. Here's rapid fire by itself. That takes me to 1.5. That is literal perfection for the 1-to-1 rotation. Rapid fire with improved Hawk though is 1.31. Rapid fire in DST is 1.24. So what do we do about that? Well, actually for a while, nothing. We just eat the clipping, which I understand is difficult to take. Every time I clip, it's like I know Hunter Jesus is disappointed in me It's worse than someone walking in on you while you're taking a piss. It's not until we get to less than 1.2 that we would want to change, which means you need at least 3 haste buffs if you're using a 2.9 speed bow. And I won't lie, this is where shit just goes off the rails. It's like I'm not even touching the keyboard and things are just happening. But from this point onwards, we see a trend where, because we're global cooldown capped, we want to let off more auto shots than steady shots. Faster than 1.2 speed, 2 steady shots for every 3 auto shots. And then, if you get even faster, which you will see happen, but pretty much only like once during an encounter, Rapid Fire, Lust, Improved Hawk, DST, all the hits, all the big ones, going off at once. If you make it to around 0.85 speed, you'll see 1 steady shot, 2 auto shots pull ahead. And then at a point where I don't think numbers even exist anymore, you'd gain DPS going with 2 steady shots for every 5 auto shots. It can be pretty goddamn hard to do those multiple auto shots per steady cleanly. It's very easy to clip, so just try not to. And that's pretty much all the rotations you need without going into extremely complex territory or melee weaving. Putting them all together, the flow of combat. Let me try to give an example of this where I'm actually changing my rotation as the attack speed changes. Alright, this was near perfect. I think I mess up once. Don't worry too much about the DPS here, I'm not in all DPS gear. This is pretty easy. We've got Rapid Fire, which we control, Improved Hawk, and DST to deal with. So I pop everything immediately, including Rapid Fire, which I know is going to drop me to 1.5. Perfect for the 1-to-1 rotation. I'm also going to use those multi-shots instead of steady shot or that little bit of extra damage. Once Rapid Fire runs out, we go back to the French rotation, but notice multi-shot is still on cooldown from when we used it before, so we just throw in the arcane shot when we can. Then we get a DST proc, which drops us down to where we want to do 1-to-1 again, but this is where I messed up and I wasn't ready for that, so I flip just slightly and then pick it up on the next shot. Improved Hawk also procs, but that doesn't change the rotation we'd use here. DST expires, but again we don't change rotations. Now they're all gone and we're back to the French rotation. And let's look at a raid situation here. This was really hectic. In a raid, I'm very rarely without some sort of haste buff, so we are usually doing 1-to-1. But you can see with everything up and the haste pot, we have to start letting multiple auto shots ring out. It's going to be difficult dealing with these super high haste numbers, especially at first. I definitely messed up a number of times here, and it was still a 99 parse the day of. Survival considerations. I hear my often forgotten, but not by me, survival bros out there, and you're asking, how does this work for Serve and Marks? Marks still exists. Actually, it's the same, sort of. Everything just moves down. As Serve, you don't have Serpent Swiftness, so your attack speed is always going to be lower than BM, but it doesn't change when you want to use the rotations, with one exception. At really low speeds, which BM just won't ever hit, you can do a variation of the French rotation, which is actually really pretty good. It's called the short French rotation, a Napoleon callback, I guess. It's the same as the regular French rotation, except you squeeze more steadies, meaning auto, steady, multi, auto, steady, arcane, auto, steady, steady, and then repeat. 2.3 or slower, I would use this rotation. At 2.2, I would go back to the regular French rotation. 2.25 or something, I don't care. Do whatever the fuck you want. Minor gains with more complex rotations. So in the Hunter's Essentials video, I wanted to get you to about 90% effectiveness. This video, we go even deeper to about 95% effectiveness. So where is that last 5%? Well, in between these rotations I've explained, there are small gaps where a much more complex rotation would do more damage. But to me, there's really no payoff. These are small gaps where if your speed falls within 1/10 of a second, you can do a much longer, more complex rotation for a very small gain. But there are some problems with those. Even if you could pull them off, once you leave that attack speed, it might put you in a place that's hard to pick up the next rotation. 1-to-1 doesn't really do that. It's also likely to be a bigger mana drain. But the biggest thing is, the damage just isn't that much higher anyway. Did this make any sense at all? I tried. This stuff can be complicated, and I really did my absolute Hunter Jesus praising best to explain it. If there's still part of it that doesn't make sense, jump into a stream and I will see what I can do to help you out. I even asked on stream or comments about what people are confused about with Hunter rotation and if there's anything that needed extrapolated on. So I got a little bit of viewer feedback in this video and I hope that helped make it understandable. My UI, macros, and mods for Hunter video is coming up very soon, but I have to point out one weak aura here that I am loving and makes this Hunter thing a hell of a lot easier for me. It's called Hunter Range Attack Speed. It is a weak aura, so you'll need the mod Weak Auras. I've put the link to this one specifically in the description. It's only had 355 views, but it is some dope shit. It will tell you your current attack speed, but also puts up a little bar that shows where your attack speed is in relation to 1.5. The little red bars straddle, nice, 1.5, so you get a good idea of what rotations you should be using. I've seen other ones that tell you very specifically your attack speed and say do like 5511 or 32 or whatever based on what your current attack speed is, but I've really taken to this one. We'll talk more about mods and weak auras and other shit in another video though. Now get ready for that outro. If you enjoyed the video, hit that sub button, bell, like button, short French button, share button, all that other shit. I appreciate each and every one I get. This channel even has memberships now. You can check them out by clicking the join button right by the sub button. It is absolutely the best way to support the channel because ad revenue is, yeah. Plus you'll get some really cool emotes while being way better and cheaper than a Twitch sub. I stream right here on YouTube at least once a week, mostly. I hope you'll join me. I think the next stream will be a pre-stream followed by another Hunter stream. But that is going to be all for this one. I really appreciate you all watching and I will see you all for the next one.